Okay, Teresa, where are you now?
I am in Europe.
What part of Europe?
Edinburgh, Scotland.
Now, this is a very exciting trip. As you trace your family history, you married a Scottishman whose father was from this area, Edinburgh.
Correct.
Now, you brought his photo with you. Can you tell us a little bit about this gentleman here? His name is Thomas Joseph Ryan. He was born here in Edinburgh in 1896 before leaving for the United States of America. What was his disposition like? Can you recall anything about Thomas?
He was a soft-spoken, well-read man, and when he went into conversation, well, I guess he led the conversation, and he always finished with a joke. He had a joke for a plumber, a joke for a doctor, and a joke even about you.
Moving right along. This is his wife, who is from the neighboring area of Glasgow, Scotland, and her name is Elizabeth MacDougall, which would be your mother-in-law, my grandmother, born in December of 1895. What can you tell us about Elizabeth?
Well, Grandma Ryan was famous for her scones, and she just could warm up everyone's heart with a cup of tea and a scone.
Now, we're here in beautiful Scotland, Department of Records. Now, although Elizabeth moved to the United States, tell us about her citizenship.
She didn't have one. You talk about a little lady with a big heart and a big mind of her own. She protested. She was Scottish, and she was born Scottish, and this lady was gonna die Scottish.
And every year she had to go to register where?
She had to go to the post office, and she was proud to do it.
To register to vote, or to register to be there as a visitor?
To register her being here in America.
Now, we do know that Elizabeth from Glasgow had something to do with music. Her family had a music shop?
Her family had a music store, a music shop, and the mother was a teacher of music in Glasgow. I don't remember the street. It may have been Thompson or something of that nature. It was one of the entry streets into Glasgow.
And now what we do know about Thomas Ryan is that his father, Thomas Ryan as well, and his wife, Mary Catherine Ryan, lived around in the 1850s. And Thomas Ryan, this gentleman, his father retired as a quartermaster sergeant from the British Army in 1898, and he received what type of utensil for his home?
He served the military as his career. So when he did leave, his division had presented him with a dinner and a silver service for tea, for coffee, etc. And that was engraved, and that is our landmark and our documentation as to their years, etc.
Which was engraved of 1898. So although we stand here in Scotland at the House of Public Records, we do not know that much information other than what we have on a teapot.
Thank God for the teapot.
Now, here's your wedding photograph. Tell us where this was.
This happened in 1954 in Maspeth, Queens, New York. And as we are kind of limited with pictures, this is my husband, John. That would be their second child, John Thomas. And that's myself, Teresa Wolowski. This is Tom Ryan, the senior. And Elizabeth,
who's from Edinburgh.
And this is Elizabeth. And onto the
from Glasgow.
From Glasgow. On the reverse side now are my parents of Polish heritage. My mom is Irene Wolowski, and my father is Peter Wolowski.
Now, what we do know about their travel over to the United States was that they first landed in Englewood, New Jersey for a short period, and then moving on to Maspeth, Queens. And then that's where they raised their children, which would be Margaret, Mary, and my father, John. And then Elizabeth, her final home was in Middle Village, Queens, is that correct?
Middle Village.
Do you remember the area in Queens where they resided?
It was Middle Village. It was near Ridgewood, which happened to be a very German community. And they were quite happy there.
So as we trace this family history of the MacDougalls and the Ryans and the Wolowskis, which lead us here to Edinburgh, tell us what it's like for you, Teresa, to be here in Edinburgh, Scotland.
It was something I thought about, but I didn't think I would ever do. I was rather cautious about taken a boat or I'm twice as cautious about going to an airplane. I did go originally when my husband died to Poland with the children, and I saw where my own parents came from. It took me more than 30 years to get the courage to go into an airplane again. And that time we had gone to Ireland last year, Ireland and Scotland. And it was so beautiful, so gratifying that I repeated it again this year. And it was just as wonderful, if not better.
Now, my grandfather again, which would be Thomas Ryan, he would actually be from this area of Edinburgh, Scotland. And as I'm here today, I kind of can't imagine why he left. It really is beautiful here, but that was how many hundreds of years ago, 100 years ago that he left?
Close to it.
So it was a very, very different Scotland. And as well, my grandmother Elizabeth, who was born in Glasgow, Scotland, another really beautiful place packed with industry, lots of job opportunities. I love Queens, New York, but I can't imagine why they would have left either.
At that time, Scotland, as wonderful as it was, did not have the opportunities that it has now.
Well, I must say that I'm very grateful that they did make that journey. We saw a boat called the Jeannie Johnson, which gave us an indication, that was in Dublin, which gave us an indication of what that journey was like. And this was no luxury cruise ship, and it did not look like they had a lot of kitchens, places to bathe. So that journey was definitely a risk, and I have to say I appreciate all of that effort. So I think we got a pretty good life in the United States, but seeing this in person, it looks great. It looks great. Loving Scotland. Well, that's the story. That's as much as we have. We'd like to thank the British Army for supplying my grandfather from Edinburgh with a teapot that engraved the dates of where he was, so we can recollect on where the Ryans came from before they went to Queens, New York.
Do widzenia.